Welcome to the Grappling with Life podcast. Today I'm joined by, or with, I keep saying by, but I'm joined with Mr. Mansoor Eslami.
Okay. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. He's been around. I've known him for the past, I guess, 10 years almost, 9 to 10 years.
How's that time gone?
So Mansoor,
Received.
thank you. Thank you for coming.
Not at all. Thank you.
Firstly, you're very well spoken, yeah. So I'm going to try and bring out my A game when it comes to grammar.
Okay.
Last podcast, it's a bit of a catastrophe, bro. My maths was all off. I don't know if you've watched it.
Yeah, well, I watched the one with Emma. It was the last one I saw.
Oh, you watched the one with Amir?
Yes.
Yeah, watched the last one. It was really good. We had Zaid Spearin. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt who's also blind as well. So his story was amazing. Yeah, really good story. Yeah, it was very inspirational. So you got a lot to
live up to.
100%, bro. You got, because we got to bring it up every podcast, right?
100%. Challenge accepted.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Firstly, you're dressed. You make me feel like a waste man dressed like that, bro.
No, it's because I come straight from work.
Yeah. Did you you thought, you know what? What's the most Persian thing I can wear today?
See, if I was going to go with the Persian
what would you
it would have been the black jeans, the Armani t-shirt, the brown leather jacket, the patent shoes.
And the loads of cologne, innit?
Absolutely. You'd have snubbed me from down the street.
100%.
3 buttons.
Oh,
Carefully
yeah.
undone just to show the hairy chest.
That's it. And the medallion.
Issue. Yeah, the medallion, the generation have stopped wearing, but
it's optional now.
Oh, absolutely. As is the leather jacket now. So
just to kind of clarify, you don't smell bad. You smell good, but you're just not overwhelming the...
Just wonder if you were trying to say I stink.
No, you don't. You don't.
Thank you.
No. I mean, with every podcast, I love food.
Oh, I love food.
You can tell that I love food, yeah.
Likewise.
MashaAllah. And so I thought, I spoke to, I don't know if you saw Amir's one.
Yes.
And he spoke about this whole, was it? Roast chicken. Fess and Jim. Yeah, some green vegetable,
No, that's...
Sorry, that was the wrong one.
Sabzi.
Oh, that's it, gourmet sabzi, yes. Bathed in pomegranate sauce.
Pomegranate is fess and Jim.
Sorry?
So gourmet sabzi is every type of green herb you can imagine, but with cubed lamb, with kidney beans, and 100% just flavor and taste. It's a very popular dish.
So what's your favorite, bro? That's what I want. We're talking about you.
Okay, for
what's
me,
your favorite?
My favorite Persian dish is something called...
It doesn't have to be Persian, but yeah, I'll start with Persian.
Persian happens to be my favorite food.
Okay,
so
all right.
I'll always go with that. But they have a dish called Istanbuli.
1 second. Is it going to do Istanbul?
Not Istanbul, Istanbul.
Okay. Sorry, Yusuf.
Istanbuli.
Right.
Yeah. So it's some African countries have it as jollof rice. It's like an orange rice. So as I explained to my African friends, you stole the idea from us, but it's okay. Probably when we conquered you back a couple of thousand years ago. It's like a basmati rice in this orange in color, which it gets its color from the tomato paste, but it has minced lamb in there, and it has thin green beans. Probably my favorite dish. You can eat it any time of the day or night. It's always filling. It's a very hearty kind of meal. Persian cuisine doesn't typically have very many dishes. My theory was that over the evolution of a few thousand years, they kind of honed it down to it's these dishes, because it doesn't overcomplicate. Because where Persian food, for example, differs to, say, Italian food, an Italian will probably spend 5 minutes cooking their food, and then they'll spend 3 hours eating it. Iranians spend 3 hours cooking the food, 5 minutes eating it. So it's a different kind of experience. But yeah, for me, Istanbul is probably my favorite dish, which my wife makes really well. So
who is not Persian?
Who's not Persian, but she's learnt to cook every Persian dish.
Was it at gunpoint or was it?
Funny enough, no, only in the first few years. But she, because my mom speaks to her in Farsi, and she responds back, my wife, in English.
Right.
So she understands it. So I can't talk about her quietly without her knowing.
Right.
But she's picked it up. 31 years. You're gonna kind of hone it.
So let's start off by just digging a bit into the Islami family tree.
Okay.
So starting with, obviously, with your father and how he's related to Amir's dad, and then you guys, and then we'll take it from there.
My dad, Hagi Eslami, Hagi Rat is his full name.
Hagi?
Hagi Rat.
Right.
You have to have a bit of the which, because you speak Arabic and Farsi, we've got it natively.
100%.
Which translated, I think, means truth.
Right.
Him and Ali, which is Amir's dad, they're brothers.
Right.
So they both came to the UK back in 1971. They came here as carpet repairers. They obviously did a few other jobs in between, to make ends meet. They came first, as was always the way with us immigrants back in the day, then set up home, so to speak. And then my mum and Ali's wife came over with myself and my sister. So that was us as immigrants here in the 1970s.
Carpet repairers.
My dad and my uncle were two of the best in the world carpet repairers. So as a child, when they were here, they were restoring carpets in some of the big stately homes. So as a child, I'd be in and out of these great big houses and then wondering why we ended up going home to a council house. Why do we not have a house like the one we was in today?
Yeah.
Because the people that owned these stately homes were very old school, old money English, and they actually really loved kids in a good and healthy way.
Right. Colonizers, basically.
Yeah, except, they
had a lot of stolen artifacts in their house.
Most amusing, yes. These children, I say, I remember Persia back in the 1950s.
Yeah.
When you were stealing our oil. Yeah. In India, when you were stealing their minerals. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Old money.
That generation.
Old money, yeah.
Very old money. But they were very good to us as kids. We were allowed to play in the grounds, which looked like parks and things.
Did they give you English names because they couldn't pronounce your name?
Do you know, they never did. But I tell you something that's interesting.
Or they call you boy.
I never got
boy, come here, boy.
I don't think, unless I kind of flipped and then maybe hurt someone and just don't ever recall it.
Right, okay, fair enough.
But the weird thing is my parents had this idea because originally as siblings, there's my older sister, myself and my younger brother. All of our names begin with M. So they just thought it was a novel thing to do. So Mansoor was my sister, Mansoor was my name, and then my brother was Masood. Ali kind of started the process like that, and then it just went all over the place. So you had
Reza.
Muhammad Reza was his proper name.
Yeah.
Then you had Amir Ali. Then you had Muhammad.
Well, he gave up after the first one.
Well, he kind of just went, wait a minute, I need to have some more kids. So then you had like Mohsen, you had Mariam, you had Muhammad, you kind of had the three M's as eyes.
So Amir was the one that was an outlier, isn't he?
From Reza and him, he just kind of threw out. And then was like, wait a minute, my
Reza as well. But
Reza was the eldest.
Yeah.
So they were all born here. And the crazy thing is we grew up in houses one door apart. So Amir's mum, Zara, is a phenomenal cook. Yeah. I have to tell you.
Firstly, first-hand experience, bro.
Yeah.
She gave us butterfly chicken. Do you remember that day, bro? Oh. Were you there?
Nah, I wasn't there, bro.
You're making me hungry.
I had butterfly chicken with kabob. That's how you guys call it. Kabob, yeah. And rice.
Yeah.
We ate it. Firstly, I had one bite, one single tear trickled down my cheek, bro. Wow.
But
it's an emotional experience.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I went to this Iranian restaurant.
No. Don't bring Iranian restaurants into it.
I went to the Iranian restaurant, Israel.
Yeah, you mans can cook though.
Oh, food is a very central part of it.
Oh, it was so nice. But honestly, it was like flavors upon flavors. I mean, the only thing with Persians, they're just too emotional, bro. So you have to get in, like
everything's
like
emotional.
The waiter was like he's your best friend, bro. Like you're there, and it's like he's waving.
No, he's like, brother, you got mayonnaise. Let me.
I gotta make for you right now.
Right now, I'm gonna make mayonnaise.
You got ketchup on your lip, brother. Wait.
I was brushing my hair and all sorts of stuff, bro.
Massaging you while let me rub your back for you. Rub your belly.
Literally, even with Emmett, like, because the thing is, like, I don't know about you, Zach, Rob, yeah, but like I never met a Persian or an Iranian before I met Emmett.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, never, not once. The only interaction I had with a Persian was when he sold us that dodgy Merc rubber and the gasket blew on the way to France, bro.
Never buy Merc from an Iranian. Standard issue car.
Hold on, don't you work for Mercedes, bro?
I do. Never buy a car from me.
It was so, bro, yeah, so that's the only, so when I met Amir, I was like, why is this guy so nice for, bro? Like, stop saying Azizam to me all the time, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? And Algerians, we're very, I won't say rude, but what would you call us? Like,
just in your face.
No, we're nice people, but we're kind of very direct. Do you get me? Very direct. Whereas Persians are very soft in it. So he's rubbed off a little bit on me, and I think I've rubbed off a little bit on him as well, bro. But anyway, wait. So
Amir's mum,
she's a good cook. She's a good cook.
Phenomenal cook.
Amazing cook, yeah.
My mum is a phenomenal cook. And we live one house apart. So there's our house, someone else's house, Amir's house. So as a child, I very quickly cottoned on that my mum and Amir's mum love to compete in the cooking. So if I'm eating at home, she'd be like, what's better, my one or Zara's one? And I'd be like, well, you know, Zara's one's not that bad, you know. It's actually, yeah, but what does she make? Well, she kind of makes it like this. And next day I go to Zara's house, she goes, mine better or your mum's? I don't know, maybe if you make me that dish, I'll try that one. And I'll tell you, Auntie, I'll tell you which one's better. So the eating, we would be like one or the other would cook. I mean, they were great friends anyway.
Yeah.
And then we would all eat together. So we'd either eat in their house or eat in our house. So although by definition, Amir is actually my cousin, Amir is more my brother than my cousin.
Yeah.
We grew up in the same. I love Amir dearly.
Was he annoying, bro? Be honest.
Not at all.
Seriously, man.
I'm telling you the truth.
But no one's listening, man. Seriously.
But honestly, I tell you this. if I give it to you in a translated Persian saying.
Go on. Say it in Persian first, though.
It's easier because
you're gonna get, but this what's gonna happen. You're gonna say it in Persian,
yeah,
and then
all the Persians
the
watching.
comments.
Wait, that's not how you translate. That's not what that means. I know what's
I get it. No problem.
So
say
all
no
you
more.
Persians listening, I'm doing you a favor. So they were saying, if I could put my life in a jar and give that jar to someone for safekeeping, Amir is one of the people I would give that jar to.
I mean,
You might make me sick, you know. I swear to God, you guys make me sick, blood.
See what I mean? Like, I can't be. He's my blood brother, yeah. And if I said that to him,
I'd spit on his face. I'm not even joking, bro. You, man, there's too much love, bro. It's too much, bro. If I can put my life in a jar, what was the other bit?
And give that jar to someone for safekeeping.
Safekeeping.
I would give it to Amir. I would. Amir's one of the people I would give it to.
bro, you need to chirp me more, man.
Bro, you know what, man? Can I be like, what about me, though?
Of course.
No, you looked away for a minute there, bro. See, that's the thing. He would never say that, though. He'd never say to me, you're a scumbag. He would just say,
never.
He would just stay silent.
You see, with Amir, I tell you what's different is we've gone through, not just Amir, if I just might add, it's Amir, Reza, Muhammad, Mohsen, Mariam, the whole family. So they've grown up as my younger siblings. They were all born here. So they've got no idea or recollection of what back home means. Yeah. So, and I barely do because I came here as a child, but I still had that growing up there. I was raised, while my dad and uncle were here, it was my granddad that raised me over there. So I didn't know who my dad was. I thought my granddad was my dad. And then I came here and said, this is your dad.
So 1 second, you were born in Tehran, yeah? This is pre-Ayatollah. Pre-revolution, sorry. And then, so you were raised with your granddad first, and then you came over.
Yeah, so I thought my granddad was my dad.
What was your granddad like? Was he a wrestler as well?
He was a wrestler as well. So he was the head of the tribe. So where they come from, so remember this is Amir's and my paternal grandfather. They come from a place called Mianeh, which is in the north of Iran. And it's very clan/tribe mentality. So my granddad was the head of that tribe. A lot of Islamis originate from this place, Mianeh.
Right.
So he was the tribal elder, if you want the clan elder. Very big, very strong man. He was also a wrestler. But the wrestling they did wasn't on a mat. Wrestling they did was to settle disputes. So, they would wrestle on the ground and they'd be maybe on hay, if anything, but not a recognized champion going through a school, for example. So their wrestling was, like I said, it was to settle disputes.
Was there any strikes involved or anything?
No, not strikes.
Oh, just it's proper wrestling,
proper wrestling.
Oil wrestling?
No, that's Turkish. That's Gulesh.
Bro, watch your mouth, man.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
It's very similar though, bro. Turkish culture and
don't say watch your mouth and then say it's Persian culture. Say it's Turkish culture.
Because he said Istanbul Punini.
Istanbuli.
Oh my God.
To all the Persians watching, you know what I'm saying.
I apologize. Yeah.
Don't apologize. That's okay.
And then kebab.
So kebab, yeah. Kebab. And then wrestling, which is very Turkish food.
You have to be careful with now.
We've got a Turk in the building.
I'm going to say, I love Turkish food. If there was a food I ever had to replace Persian food, it would be Turkish. Make no mistake. So
what about Bengali, bro?
I'll tell you what it is. Turkish people, no, because I don't know. I don't have the experience of it. What I'm saying is, if you dropped me into Turkey, I would assimilate instantaneously.
Oh yeah.
So the culture is very similar. The family orientation is very similar. The food is very similar. I grew up. My first language was Turkish, so it's a culture I can instantly immerse myself in.
Yeah.
Also, flying carpets as well.
Flying carpets came much later.
Was it?
Much earlier, yeah. Because I never did work out whether Aladdin was Persian or whether he was Arabian. I never
Firstly,
did.
he's Arab, bro. Watch your flipping. No, you can't take everyone, bro. Listen, you Persians can't take everyone.
Was ours.
Was it yours?
Sinbad was a Persian.
No, we call him Sindibad.
No,
that's his name.
Sindibad was a girl, I think. No, Sindibad.
Nah,
sure
bro.
It's not Sinbad. Yeah.
No, it's Sindibad, bro.
Definitely. Sinbad was definitely Persian.
You must take everything, you know. Now you're trying to take Aladdin as well.
The thing is, if you look at it in terms of ancient cultures, which culture is older?
Oh, here we go.
So do you want me to get started?
No, don't give me started.
I could take you through to the very beginning.
No, I don't want to, bro, because you're just going to hurt our feelings, bro.
No, I'm not going to hurt you. Just it's the truth.
Because you guys got saffron, yeah?
And you have saffron.
You guys and emotional intelligence and all that type of stuff.
Did you know the Persians invented ice cream? Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Look it up. They invented ice cream. They invented red wine. Ice cream.
What else did they invent?
Red wine.
Interesting.
There's lots of things that people. The reason probably why Iranians.
But we did mash you up though.
Huh?
We mashed you up.
Well, after we dominated the world.
Yeah, after that. You took a few licks, yeah, then we came in and mashed you up.
You know what, you can have it.
Yeah, we mashed you up, bro.
I think it was kind of that. we just go inside and, you know what, just take over.
These like desert guys, bro, who's never seen greenery yet. You guys got soft though. That's what happened, didn't it?
Do you know what? I think we just got bored of not having anyone decent to fight.
Yeah, that's it.
And then we just became fat and complacent and just realised, you know what? You can just take it. We just submit to you. It's
that Floyd Mayweather, innit? Of
money.
Of empires.
Well, the thing it was one of the. If you look at it in the beginning, you had the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Egyptians, right? So, and if you look at it historically, from where you go from there, each had their moment where they were dominating and conquering the world. And of course, you had the Mongolians that came a little bit later, the Ottomans that came after that.
No, you skipped the whole middle bit.
Which was? Which
was the Arabs, bro. I said the Muslims, but yeah, Arabs.
That came a bit later.
Did it come there?
Yeah.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah. They hadn't formed themselves. came a lot later. That's okay.
You got
Hadouken me, bro. Wow. I'm a history buff, bro.
Yeah.
Modern history, by the way.
I love history.
I'll take you on modern history, bro.
Yeah, let's go for it.
No. I forfeit, bro.
It's fine. We just laid down. I just went, no, it's yours. It's fine. We'll follow you. You guys look kind of cool. Let's just go with it.
We look similar, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, the thing is, our whole region looks similar.
Yeah.
The difference is, I think, the Farsi language is softer. Arabic language is more aggressive.
100%.
So even when you guys are saying something gentle, it sounds like you're actually being very aggressive. And
unless you're Syrian. See, the thing with the closer you get to Persia, the more they speak like Syrians. They sing. They're so sweet in the way they speak. When I heard, have you noticed Palestinians as well? Who else? Jordanians. You know that area. The closer you get to Persia, the more kind of.
And then you see that's not a good thing, because sometimes they could be telling you in the nicest voice that actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to be killing you slowly. I'm going to take you apart to 1,000 pieces and I'm going to bury you so nobody will ever find you. And you have no idea what they're saying because it's said with such calmness. At least sometimes if you have that little bit of aggressive tone to it, you understand, okay, this guy's not happy with me.
You said it with such experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of what we do, you know.
So you grew up in a household. So you had food fights. I mean, not food fight. What we call it, like competitions between the mums.
Between Amir's mum. It pretty much I can say it's been like my second mum. So it was very little difference between, because without going into the specific details, my mom was very young when she had me. Very, very, very young by Western standards. And Zara wasn't that much older. So they were very young parents. So both were always there. growing up emotionally as a child. So I could go to either if I ever needed anything. So we grew up in neighbouring houses. That's what kind of set the tone for the relationship that we have to this day. So I know I've always come across as the older brother, never the cousin. So, and I've never thought of any of my cousins as cousins other than when someone asked me. And I said, only because I'm articulating correctly, well, technically they're my cousins, but really they're more like my brothers. To have grown up so long together in neighbouring houses. And then, of course, we kind of left London. And then when we came back to London, we were then living in the same house. So then we were
where did you go?
So we left Stoke Newington, we went to Colchester in Essex. My dad thought it was a good idea to leave the ghetto, an idea that kind of stayed with me, and I tried to do the same thing. It just went horribly wrong. Well,
did you start shotting? Is that why you left?
No, it's just that when you live in a very diverse community, your cultural background never is a barrier because you see the similarities with each other. So whether you're Greek, Iranian, Turkish, Algerian, you all kind of got something in common, right? Whereas when you uproot a family, you take them to Colchester where everybody, what's the correct word, is native, you are suddenly white, privileged. Suddenly it's pointed out and you're like,
you're the other now.
But wait a minute, I'm white like you. And like, yeah, you're like us. You know, you're and then you'd get the whole string of it. Why don't you go back to your country? Why do you do this? Why do you
go fix the carpet?
And then that's what made me get fascinated with history. Then I'd be like, listen, when you guys were barbarians running around the woods hitting each other with clubs, we were mapping the stars and the seas of this planet. So don't talk to me about what you think is a Neanderthal culture. You guys have no culture. And it's only when
another one, bro.
It's only when I returned back to London, and because of my diverse mix of friends, I think, wow, you know what? In that sense, we're almost identical. We've got the same family values. We've got very similar food. We've got very similar outlook. We've got very similar humour. And then it would make me look at the native culture and realise that there's a complete lack of. There is no culture. Because it just never would dawn on me when I would see, for example, my white friends, the way they would talk to their parents. Because I'd be like, if I even thought what you just said, thought it, my mum would read that thought and that shoe would go around a corner and it would find me. It would go at 90-degree angles. And, you know, it's when you're in kind of, I'm going to say our cultures, because I think we're all similar. Your mum can give you beats, your auntie can give you beats, your uncle can give you...
The shopkeeper, bro. Everyone
give you beats. And if the shopkeeper gives you beats and you go home and you tell your parents, they give you another set of beats and say, what did you do that the shopkeeper had to give you beats?
You know how we used to bond before in school? Honestly. All the Turks, the black kids. You know how we used to bond? We used to share stories how we used to get licks by our parents.
I still share those stories.
We still, and it's very similar it's like they went to the same school, bro.
It's like your mum could be my mum.
It's like
she's got that same ability to throw the shoe around. Yeah, man. And does dad teach you to go and get the belt? Yeah, he does that as well. And in that era, here's the crazy part, the way we were raised, if at school you misbehaved in some way, the way that in my generation, the parents would deal with it, the teachers, they'd say, right, I'm writing a letter to your parents. They would give you the letter and you would take that letter home. It never crossed your mind to say, well, I just throw this letter away. No one's ever going to know.
Unless you're Zach, bruv.
Well, I take the letter home. And you know, then I realised after
a beating, bruv.
Well, because I realised my parents couldn't read English, right? So the first 2 times I took a beating. After that, it was like, so what does this letter say? Yeah, Dad, it says Mansoor's doing really well in school and his grades are exemplary and he's going to one day leave this ghetto and he's going to be a somebody and you should be really rewarding me and taking me to Hamleys. Does it say that? Yeah, it says it there. Look, you can't read. Just take my word for it, Dad. It says I need to have that new Lego set. It's because it helps me with the engineering that I haven't started yet because I'm 8. But I want to learn to build houses, Dad. I want to learn to build houses.
You know what I love about that? He took those 2 licks to give the confidence in his translation, and then he didn't lie the first time. It's the 3rd time that he lied.
Yeah, bro.
So he built that trust, and now he's a car salesman.
Yeah,
there you go.
Telling people more lies, crazy, and that's a whole story in itself. So yeah, that's pretty much, like I said, I relate with that exactly.
Yeah.
Whoever was foreign, whether you were black, you know, like I said, Chinese, not that we had many Chinese in the place, but those of us that were of culture, it was easy to assimilate straight away because you'd understand them. So you'd understand straight away, you get that, I get that. It's like that. Why don't we just stick together?
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of formed. That's why the relationships that I have are so diverse. It's because we learned very quickly that, listen, we're all in the same predicament. We're going to get jumped by these guys in the National Front. We're going to get jumped by the skinheads. We're going to get jumped by somebody. Why don't we just watch each other's backs? And that's how the relationship's kind of developed. And that's when, I started to learn to recognize the similarities, not the differences between the cultures. And then that spread from, a growing up environment in a tough neighborhood to something that I carry to this day. So when I walk in a room, I don't look for the division anymore. I just look to say, what have we got in common here? So, if it's a sport, then it's a sport. If it's a material thing, if it's an organic thing, whatever it is, what's the common ground that we've got? And then once you know what that common ground is, you get amazed as to how people kind of open. And once they open, you have a much deeper level of conversation with people. It's not superficial anymore. And those kind of conversations are far more rewarding because you learn a lot more about yourself in how you understand and how you kind of put that information across to people.
Mansoor, wrestling, bro.
Wrestling.
Why does it break our hearts, man?
Wrestling's an interesting sport.
It really is.
It's one of the original 8 sports of the very first Olympic Games. Wrestling also goes back to biblical times. It's something that I'm going to say as men, we do naturally as children. Grappling is what you will do with your brother when you're 4 or 5 years old. You just don't call it grappling. You just call it play fighting. There's an art form to it. And it is quite easy to get passionate about it because it's an emotive sport. When you're competing against a wrestler, you're competing against somebody that's your weight. Give or take, they're going to be your size. So what separates you from your opponent is the strength of your psychology, the strength of your mind, your ability to visualize what's happening before your body carries out the actions to support that visualization. So you can be technical, you can be strong, you can be fast, but if your head is not in the right place, you're going to lose. It's that simple. Because it is something where, unlike many other areas in your life, you're evenly matched. You are against someone that will be of the same ability as you. So what makes a champion is someone that's very dedicated, someone that is very focused, someone that's very determined, and someone that's very disciplined. And that discipline is most important in how your mind is programmed to think. Because ordinarily in your everyday life, you're either going to be a product of your surrounding, you're a product of your social conditioning. You become somebody else when you set foot on the mat. The person that I was as a wrestler was very different to the kid that was at school or the kid that was playing on the streets. I knew that when I set foot on the mat, my kind of persona changed. I had to become aggressive. I had to become disciplined in a way that I may not have been in my ordinary, everyday, playful state as a child. And I think these are the things that makes wrestling such a passionate sport. It encompasses and embodies many of the emotions we experience as we grow up. That's what I think wrestling is.
So that bit, yeah, we're going to clip that bit. I'm going to put some inspirational background.
100%.
And then we cut to people wrestling and stuff.
It's Persians, bro.
The guy just dropped a 16 bar, literally straight off the dome. Did you see me almost crying, bro?
We're actually gonna do that.
It's talent, bro.
Huh?
We do that.
It's bro, that's a clip.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bro. That's just a clip. All right. Let me just gather my thoughts, please, bro.
Center yourself.
Thank you. Let me center myself.
Rewind it.
What's that?
Rewind it for 5 seconds.
Thank you, bro.
There you go.
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Right. So, how do we get? This is a very big question. How do we get wrestling to a point where it competes with things like sports like judo, jiu-jitsu is practically a new sport compared to wrestling in the UK? And you're, because I know that the reason why I'm framing it like this, let's put the lens of Olympic 2012, because you were heavily involved in the legacy, what was it called? What's the term?
In the
Olympic legacy committee or something like that. What was it?
I was part of the International Olympic Committee. Well, I was a manager for the 2012 Games. I looked after the technical services and the international federations. What that meant on a daily basis was I was responsible for the referees. all of the ancillary technology that went with the referees and obviously for the judging of those matches. And then for the governing body, which at that time was FILA, now become known as United World Wrestling. And then all of the federations from around the world that were here, obviously with their athletes. That was my involvement, if you like, in an administrative sense for the London Games. But I was also involved with the government's education and awareness program. So I travelled to all of the schools in East London, talking about the Olympics, talking about wrestling specifically within the Olympics. And then I was there for the test event and the duration of the games. But I want to kind of back you up a step for something that you said earlier.
Yep.
When we talk about how MMA has rescued wrestling, and we use terms as how do we make wrestling kind of like, say like judo or MMA or something that, if we reinterpret the language, is commercially viable.
Yes,
okay?
yeah, exactly.
So to make something commercially viable, we have to look at, or maybe we have to stop looking at wrestling as something that's going to compete with these things and try to understand that wrestling is a way of life, not just a sport. So when you have a sport that is kind of predates almost all of these other forms of martial arts, you're talking a sport that can go back, 2,000-3,000 years, and it will be on cave drawings, in places. It will be, within scripture that people have found that's thousands of years old. So you have to understand that wrestling is a way of life. And what do I mean by saying it's a way of life? It's kind of like a parallel to how you live your life. So when you understand the discipline that it takes, one of the things that has always been hard about wrestling is it's never been materially rewarding. It's never been financially rewarding. It's never been rewarding in a sense of recognition. Because if you were to go out to a layperson and then say, tell me who won the gold medal at 74 kilos at London 2012, I bet you they couldn't. Ask them who won it at Rio, they probably wouldn't know. They could probably have a 5 times Olympic gold champion walk past them in the street and they wouldn't recognize them. So people look at this as a weakness and a failure of wrestling. I think sometimes the complete opposite. It's a measure of its strength. Because if you want ego, jump into a cage. Go to MMA, go to UFC, go out there and have this pretend face-off with someone, inside a room filled with the press, and then say how you're going to do all manner of things to your opponent, and then you're going to walk in that ring, and then, one of you is going to be walking out, and one of you is going to be fled out. So
I'm guessing you're not a fan, bro.
I'm a massive fan. Bro. On the contrary, I'm a massive fan. But what I recognize it as is that it's not a competitor to wrestling. What it is a tribute to wrestling. It's not a competitor, because you're never going to make wrestling commercially viable in the way that you can something that's tangible, like, for example, MMA or under the brand of UFC, simply because people are very bloodthirsty. So if you televise an event where there's 2 men or 2 women these days inside a cage, hammering each other till one of them submits to the other or one of them is unable to then get back up or knocked out, then it's very easy for people to follow. It's kind of a return of the gladiator. It's kind of the arena where people's pent-up frustrations and anger get superimposed onto somebody inside that cage. So if you've had a bad day because your boss has been on your case, you're probably watching that fight, visualizing the person being defeated as the boss and the person who is the aggressor and the victor as yourself. You're superimposing and projecting yourself. When you talk about wrestling, wrestling is a discipline and a skill. So when you talk about something that predates all these other martial arts, understand what wrestling was fed from. So I would say you're never going to be able to make wrestling compete. And sometimes, even though I have a personal connection, I have a son that is, his ambition is to compete at the Olympic Games. He has done everything leading him to this moment. And as I've said to him, his passion and dedication to sport, in my world, in the words of Muhammad Ali, he'd have been a world champion at anything he did. He could have gone on to do table tennis, he would have been a world champion. He could have gone on to do swimming and been a world champion. He happened to choose the discipline of wrestling, not because I wanted him to do that, but that's what he was naturally drawn to. I actually wanted him to go into football or tennis. Being a parent, I was thinking, go into something that, is going to give you some kind of financial reward, because you're never going to have that from wrestling. I witnessed my own dad punish himself relentlessly through his training regime for going to work and trying to support a family with 3 kids and to pay the mortgage and to pay the bills, and then whatever time he had left, whatever hours was left in the day, he was then spent keeping himself in his peak performance kind of state. So this is a man who I watched at 39 years old win the European Championships by training a grueling program for 9 months. Does anybody know that? No. Does anybody care that he was a European champion? Probably not. So what did he get out of it? There was no television, there was no money, there was no reward. But to him, it was the measure and the reward of that hard work, that he set foot on a mat with people that were 21, 22 years old at their physical, personal best, at the prime of their life, where here he was, what by today's standard would be classed as a veteran, at 39 years old, winning and beating a 22-year-old. Unthinkable today. But I watched him. He reduced his body fat content to a single digit. I watched him go through. So I watched the pain and the agony, where he had to maintain his weight and be aware of the fat content of his build, be aware of the proteins that he was digesting. These weren't in an area where you can just walk into a pharmacy or walk into a health food shop and pick up whey protein. I'm talking grinding literally pistachios and almonds and making his own protein-based drinks. So I think you're never going to be able to make wrestling appealing. The rest of the wrestling world, in other words, every country except the UK, adopts and follows the same type of program. So they follow a coaching course that's developed by UWW. They have referees trained to UWW kind of standards and criteria, right? So if you go wrestling, for example, in Hungary or Bulgaria, or you go wrestle in Germany, you're going to find pretty similar. What separates them is the style of a Russian wrestler is slightly different to that, say, for example, of an American. So an American is fast. It's very cardio intense. Yeah. Okay, these guys, their cardio levels are phenomenal in the States, but they may not be about technique. They may be about mostly cardio and their relentlessness with it. They will fight a 60-minute round. They're that fit. A Russian, for example, is perhaps more offensive but more technical based. You go to an Iranian, he's very passive. He's probably the most annoying style of wrestling to have to face. But they all seem to work really, really well together. They work well together because they follow a common procedure. If you had been fortunate enough, I don't know if you were, to come and watch the wrestling, for example, at London 2012, it's like you're watching a different sport, because you're watching sport with athletes that have got exceptional skill. You've got referees that have exceptional talent. You have judges that have, incredible kind of, ability to discern and make a decision about whether a move was allowed, not allowed. Was it 2 points? Was it 3 points? The technology is all there to watch it. A dispute is instantly up on the screen. So we don't have that here. So we're doing a disservice to our athletes by kind of encouraging and allowing those wrestlers that we have that are not of the standard necessary to actually be forward into thinking that they are of the standard necessary, and then they go off to an international tournament and then they get humiliated. And those here that do have the capability aren't selected to go to those tournaments. So what you're seeing is correct, but it's not indicative of how wrestling works around the rest of the world.
For a sport any Olympic sport, you put money in it, you're going to get results. And you can look at those sports, like, for example, cycling, and what was the other one, rowing.
Yes.
What's the other thing that we're known for in the UK now since, I think that's the only two I can think of off the top of my head.
Athletics, not really much.
Athletics is track and field.
Some track and field, some swimming.
Swimming, yeah.
Shooting, I think is another one. Some of the equestrian stuff, maybe.
Exactly. Now, how wrestling is not there,
okay,
I don't understand. Because if you look at the pedigree of that sport.
Okay. What people need to be aware of, I'm going to have to be politically incorrect here now.
Are we going to be able to pull this out?
No, you can air this, because I'm quite happy to go on record with this. Because what I'm going to tell you is a statement of fact. I grew up as a child, I'm going to say, although it's very gentrified today, in what was a ghetto. Okay, wasn't much opportunity presented to people that were growing up in the inner city in the 70s and the 80s. Okay, so the type of sports that we would have had access to are things that would have been, for example, like boxing, wrestling, judo, because there'd be what would be in those days called, such and such boys club, where you'd go there and football and stuff. And it was a safe place to go and learn a sport. I don't ever recall ever having any exposure to something like rowing as an example. Okay? Yeah. And I'm using rowing very specifically. Although we have had great success at rowing, won many gold medals and, fantastic athletes that have won those gold medals. It's quite an exclusive sport. Okay. So when you talk about 2012, rowing was the number one funded sport. £200 million given to them.
Whoa.
£200 million on the funding table. To give you an idea by comparison, the very bottom of the funding table was beach volleyball. I don't know if you knew there was actually beach volleyball in the UK.
No.
Above beach volleyball was wrestling. To give you an idea of where we were on the scales, you can imagine cycling would have been up there, athletics would have been up there.
Gymnastics.
So when you
gymnastics would have been up there.
Gymnastics. Yeah.
Gymnastics pretty much was big because they knew money was in there. So
sure. But when you consider that you're pouring £200 million into rowing, how many people in an inner city in London, Manchester, Cardiff, Glasgow are realistically going to have access to rowing? Okay, so when you look at the disparity between how this money is allocated, the next kind of natural question to be asking is, who's making these decisions? So what I'm going to label as the entitled sports. Okay, the decisions are made by very entitled people, okay, who have a vested interest to ensure that funding goes in a particular way. To me, is wholeheartedly wrong when you allow so much funding to go to a sport that will never represent people on a big scale. It will never represent the many, okay? And I'm sure you might get the odd person in rowing that maybe has come from, a background that maybe had some bursary to go to a particular uni. But for the large majority, particularly for me growing up in Hackney, I don't even think I'd have even seen a river. And if I did, it really wasn't a place you want to go because usually.
Well, don't you remember River Lee, bro?
Oh, I do remember the river.
There's a lot of dead bodies flowing in it.
Exactly.
So
and a lot of stolen goods usually at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a place you went thinking
To be fair, there are rowing clubs. There are clubs now. They've got canoeing and stuff.
See, canoeing's different.
Yeah. Okay.
Canoeing's
rowing.
different to rowing.
Yeah.
Canoeing is a sport. I can remember having access to canoeing.
Yeah.
But the facilities to go and use for the canoeing isn't available everywhere. My point being, for example, wrestling or judo or taekwondo only requires a room and some mats.
Yeah,
you can take that everywhere. So if you're going to go into in a city school, how are you going to teach them rowing? On a machine? Is that the same thing?
No.
When you put them into a very narrow vessel and then telling them to... It doesn't. It's for the select few.
Well,
So
the Jamaican bobsled team in Cool Runnings.
I thought that was excellent.
That was
the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
And that was maybe to make a point. And they didn't win. Right? So the point is they didn't.
Look, I don't know if my memory serves you correct. Was that based on a true story?
Yes, it was.
It was, wasn't it?
It was based on a true story. It was the valor with which at the end, even though they had kind of toppled, they got up and then they carried the sleigh to say, we're going to finish this race.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
the same like in 2012, there was...
Eddie the Eagle, right?
He was the skier, Eddie the Eagle.
Oh, right, yeah.
But in 2012, there was a swimmer, and I can't remember which
from
African
Ethiopia.
nation. Ethiopia, right?
Was it Ethiopia, Eritrea, or...
Eritrea, I think it was.
Okay. I will find that out, bro.
Who was the swimmer in 2012? So all these other countries, the swimmers, they're finished. They've got out of the water.
Yeah, I remember that.
And this guy is still going, right? He's still going to finish his race and he's just not giving up. So when he eventually finishes his lap, whatever it was, I don't know, 6 laps, 8 laps, he got an applause from the people because of the fact that he actually finished the event. So Cool Running, to me, that was symbolic of that kind of environment.
Yeah,
it's the fact that you actually try to finish, right? So those are to me, very honourable things in the world of good sportsmanship. Whereas when we're relaying it in terms of funding, what does it take for wrestling to suddenly become a better funded sport? It would need to be able to prove that it can produce results, and results are measured in terms of a medals table, right? So, for example, the Commonwealth Games is being hosted in Birmingham next year, but they're not allowing a full team of wrestlers to go. They're only allowing 5 people to go.
From the UK?
From the UK, representing England. And the games are in England. So why is it, for example, that our wrestling association, when they are the host nation, are not battling to have a full lineup? So
how do you...
how do they figure out what the full lineup is? Is it like a specific?
So, as an
I
example,
always wondered, like, you know, for example, Olympic, so the Commonwealth, for example, yeah. How do you qualify? Is it through internal?
so it's an internal set of processes
Right.
to be selected for your home nation. Because remember, when it's a Commonwealth,
Yeah.
it's England, Scotland, Wales,
Yeah.
Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's not Team GB. So every home nation has a team,
Yeah.
and they go through their own internal kind of qualifications.
So like
determine-
the Southern region, the British, that type of stuff?
They'll tell you what the qualifying events are.
Right, right.
But here's wherein becomes the problem. As an example, I'll give you for Team England, right?
Yeah.
So Team England, you can win the British and you can win the English. That makes you technically the number one seed for England, right?
Yeah.
If you won the British, technically it's the UK. But these aren't the only qualifying aspects.
Right.
So what they like to see is they like to see you compete at an international tournament.
Right.
But here's where it starts to become undone. In order for the selection panel, and nobody knows who that selection panel is, you need to win 2 matches at an international. But the only way you're going to get selected to compete at that international is if you win 2 matches at an international. So you're in this circle. So they won't select you because you don't have 2 wins, and you can't be selected unless you have 2 wins.
Let's get on to the 2012 Olympics, because it was so close to home, literally in London. Like the area we lived in was transformed completely.
Totally.
I don't know if you remember where the Olympic Park is now. You remember it was like,
I watched it being built.
but do you remember it was like before?
Yeah.
Was that dead?
West Ground.
No, before that, bro. Like, as in, it was a waste ground, yeah. But there was that international church there. I see something. Then we had the Sunday market. Do you remember Sunday market,
Yes. Yeah.
bro? Where people got caught selling rocket launchers there and all sorts of madness.
And videos, there weren't actually videos, there were bricks inside empty cases.
Yeah, all that type of stuff. Do you remember? It was like literally the criminals all around Europe used to come and
Yeah, exactly.
it was like
Short of buying and selling people, it's just about
do you
to buy
remember?
everything.
You
Of course I
could buy
remember it.
anything there, man. I remember. And then that whole area was like you said, a wasteland. It was rejuvenated. Like the Olympic Park, and obviously it hosts West Ham football club. So there was a lot of regeneration happening. And I was actually on a parallel to you. I was actually working in the third sector at the time, and in a charity where we used Olympic legacy money as well to kind of but for me there was no joined up thinking. This is something from a third sector point of view. Everything was a reaction. It was almost like, bro, you had all. Do you remember when was it that we won the bid? 2005, right?
No, it was after Beijing. So Beijing was 2008.
So because I remember on the day there was the 7/7 bombings, right?
So that must have been 2007.
It's 2007, bro. I remember it was that year, because I remember distinctly we got the bid, and then all the madness happened after
It was
that.
2005.
2005.
Was it?
Yeah. But when did we find out when we won the?
It was 2005 because it was 2 weeks. It was a week after the 7/7 bombing.
That's right. Yeah. 2005, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So 2005. That's 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah. I remember I got my job in 2008, and there was all this thing about legacy. Like they kept throwing that word around. What's going to happen when the Olympics goes? What we're going to do with, in the Olympic Village. How are we going to build awareness about the Olympics? All this type of stuff. Going into schools. I remember I've got a picture of with the Olympic torch. It went through all of East London. I remember, but I remember we were having these conversations, and we were just thinking, like, yeah, Olympics is happening there, and we're here, and there was not enough happening. Like, imagine East London. I would say in London was one of the most deprived areas in London at the time. Now they've used that kind of, and it's a bit cynical to say, but I feel like they've used that the Olympics to gentrify the area, bro. That's basically what I think.
Well, it coincided with the gentrification of the area.
Or that, but I'm a bit more cynical because I've lived in Hackney. It annoys me. We lived through the gunshots and the murder and all this type of stuff, and now people are moving in and then they're enjoying all the
fruits of our pain.
like all the what's it called, the artisan coffees and organic sourdough bread and avocados and whatnot. Does that make sense? So
Totally, I see it.
anyway, what was I gonna say? Yeah, so that I remember seeing it from a parallel. No, you were right in it. You went to the opening ceremony, innit, Zach? Yeah. That was a weird one as well.
Opening and the closing.
But so talk to me about the wrestling side of things. So
Let me start by saying this. In all of the jobs and the opportunities that I've had, that has still remained the single best job
is it
ever. Because when I had the conversations with a guy called Daniel Robin, sadly passed away, great man, about coming to, carry out this role of International Federation and the technical services, I actually thought he wanted me to come and volunteer for it. So I didn't realize.
So you weren't a volunteer?
I was a paid manager, yeah.
Full-time
contract.
For how long?
About a year, I think.
Okay.
Just over a year.
So you quit your job and done this?
Yeah. Well,
sabbatical.
Originally, I thought, like I said, it was a voluntary position.
Right.
And then when he kind of ran me through the description, I said, this sounds like a job. He goes, no, it is a job, but it's a paid job. So I would have been happy to have done it for free.
Right.
Because I was able to, do something that I enjoyed so much that it never felt like work.
Yeah.
Secondly, I was about to be on the premise of meeting every one of my wrestling heroes face to face, shaking hands with them.
Did you meet Carolyn and all those guys?
Everyone.
No.
Carolyn is a giant of a human being. So
let's run through. Let's like just for the geeky side of things.
Okay.
Let's run through who'd you meet?
So I met John Smith.
Yeah.
John Smith, multiple Olympic champion from the US.
Yeah.
Managed to take 2 of my kids to meet him.
Cool.
I'm really sorry, IOC. I did sneak them in. I brought them into the athletes training area, which was just behind where the.
So he was competing that year, wasn't he?
Oh no, he wasn't competing.
Oh, he wasn't. He's
long
old.
retired.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
He's a culture.
But he's one of the most accomplished American wrestlers. Fantastic wrestler.
Did you meet Kel Sanderson?
No.
No, he wasn't there.
Because remember, I'm old school, so I remember a lot of the older people. So, when I'm trying to say to my kid, you need to come back here, you are not going to believe John Smith is here. Luckily, they knew who he was. Took photos with him, spent a bit of time with the kids, which was great. Met Carolyn, again, 4 times Olympic champion.
Does she speak English?
Not a word. Not a word. But luckily, my team, I had probably 20-something people in my team. They were the volunteers. Right, some of them spoke 6 languages.
Wow.
I kid you not. Right, it's like, where on earth did you learn to speak 6 languages? Amazing. I had people from Kazakhstan. I had people from Uzbekistan. I had people from America. I had someone from India. I had someone. It was just like a UN of people.
Yeah.
And doctors, engineers,
all volunteering. Yeah.
All volunteers, all paid for their own accommodation to stay for the 2 weeks of the games. And the 2 weeks before the 2 weeks, about 6 weeks. So there was no shortage of people to come and translate when I went to talk to people. Dan Gable, a very big name in American wrestling. So as part of my job, I was organizing the event that saw him being inducted into what was then FILA, now UWW Hall of Fame.
Wow.
So I had to hire the venue. We had TV
Where
crews.
was it done?
This was in London, near St. Paul's. I'm trying to remember the name of the hotel. God, it's so long ago now. Just literally within shot of St. Paul's. I can't remember the name of the hotel that we used. TV crews that arrived, obviously North America, Central America TV. I remember distinctly that the award we were going to give him was trapped at customs. So I had the American Federation saying, Mansoor, we kind of don't know what to do. The award we're presenting tonight, it's like a big framed thing, with his induction. It's trapped at customs. I'm like, guys are American, man. It's true. You got your CIA, you got people, you can pull some strings, kill someone. Surely they were like, no, it's the American Wrestling Association. We kind of don't have that influence. I said, yeah, but embassies here. Surely somebody could have, there's so much red tape, so much this, so much that. So Call up the...
Is this the only time America's asked Iran for help?
Probably not the only time. The only time it will admit that it asked for help.
Yeah.
But probably because I'm waving a British flag. So no, just literally it was 2 or 3 phone calls. You know how it is. You phone someone, you speak to someone, you got some common ground, bro, I need a favour. You got these items there, I'll send you whatever letters you need. And probably within 2.5 hours, I had everything land at the hotel.
Wicked.
So it became instant good friends with the Americans. You know, that's when I got to meet Dan Gable. We were presenting him with the award that evening.
What's he like, man?
Very quiet.
Is it?
Man, barely uttered a few words. It's just, you know, like, it's really hard to explain to those of you that don't know who we're talking about. Dan Gable in the world of wrestling is, I want to say, probably like a Pele if you're into your football. So old school, very accomplished, very well renowned, but has also gone on to produce many champions. So it's not just about him as an individual, but the people he kind of trains. And
also, there's a legend around him, isn't it? Because he hasn't lost. He didn't lose a.
He's not. I'll tell you now. He's not the greatest wrestler that ever lived.
Yeah,
but
it's
the fact that he's produced.
But isn't his record that he's never lost a point?
No.
No, never lost a match.
Never
Sorry,
lost a match. No.
Yeah.
The point was Satiev from Ossetia.
Oh yeah, Satiev.
Who's never submitted a point. And that region, Ossetia, has.
That's nuts, though.
They have the most number of Olympic champions per capita than any place on earth. I don't know if it's the water. Yeah. I don't know if they live near a nuclear reactor.
Where's Ossetia again?
So Ossetia is in Russia.
Yeah, I know it's disputed land at the moment, right?
Yeah, like a lot of things.
Are we going to get like,
There's a lot of disputes for land. Yeah. Just be careful what we say, because if you see a red dot, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, but let's just say
their region has produced more Olympic champions than anywhere else.
Wow.
I don't know, like I used to have a very good friend that was Ossetian, that I'd be like, if you've got like some nuclear reactor in your town or something that's giving people superpowers or something in your water, how come you've got so many champions? And it's just like, it's our way of life. It's just literally that. So very talented. So Dan Gable isn't the best in that regard, but it's because he's so well known. Because America hasn't produced that many champions, but those that it have produced are just
legendary,
absolutely fantastic wrestlers. And I love American wrestling, and I love the American Wrestling Association. I love the inclusiveness. I love their diversity in their athletes, and their cardio is just on.
But also the facilities, the money that gets put into
100%.
it, the backing, and it's like I know, like Abraham Lincoln used to wrestle. It's part of their kind of.
It's so supported.
Yeah.
See that when they have a competition in their school or college, everybody attends. It's televised.
Yeah. It's like 10,000 people watch. I remember there's a high school. What's that thing that they do at the end of the year? Playoffs, not even playoffs. So
NCAA, what was it?
That's NCAA is college. There's a high school one that they do.
Yeah. This is where they then determine whether they get their scholarships into.
Exactly. It's massive. Like there's 20,000, 15,000 people watching, and then 16, 17-year-olds.
Look at the variants you have. You've got those, the supremely physically strong from the south, to those that are very quick from the north.
Or in America, you mean?
In America, yeah. So when you look at kind of the Bible Belt of America, this is
where Brock Lesnar's from, right?
Yeah, but also Dan Gable.
Dan Gable, yeah.
So yeah, this region, physically,
some Milwaukee, not Milwaukee. What's that place? Ohio.
Yes, Ohio.
Ohio State. You've got Milwaukee, right? No, Milwaukee's in
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
No, Wisconsin. Is it Wisconsin?
That's where Milwaukee is.
Sorry.
Yeah. If we just go with Ohio.
Basically, I don't know America. Let's stick with Ohio.
It's a land of hope and glory.
Ohio State. I know Ohio State. There's the big ones, isn't it?
Colorado, you have.
Colorado.
Colorado is where the Olympic training center. That's where Cyril spent probably 3 months.
And it's high altitude there, right?
It is, which is particularly good for when you're training.
Yeah.
And these guys, I mean, when Cyril spent, I think he spent 3 months out there with them. There's a guy he was telling me that was coaching some of the athletes. And this guy's like in his 40s. And he wouldn't let Sidus leave the mat until he'd managed to kind of beat Sidus. Because Sidus is like, look, man, I'm like 20-something years old. I'm in the peak of my physical fitness. You know, it's a 40-year-old guy. And the guy wrestled him for like 3 hours. 3 hours of continual wrestling.
Why?
Yeah, because Sidus scored a point and beat him. And he was like, you're not leaving until I beat you by the same number of points. So they're constantly like grappling, but they're not getting points. So he won't let him leave. And I love that. I love that about them. That's that resilience that is that I don't believe that I'm not capable. I mean, if you think when we had 2012 on, we had Henry Kujudo, if you remember, actually came. Yeah, he came to
Legion.
the football club.
Sport. In Leyton Orient.
Leyton Orient.
Yeah.
When he came, 16 years old when he won his gold medal with China. You know, in 2008.
16?
He was 16 years old. 2008. Youngest ever. So again, another great wrestler. Didn't go on to succeed in that, but obviously went to MMA and is now doing different things. But yeah, so to come back to the 2012 games, organising the event for Dan Gable was amazing. Meeting the people behind the scenes was amazing. You know, I managed to go, all of the countries had kind of like a launch stroke press evening at their various embassies for the wrestling teams and stuff, right? One of the most memorable things, apart from being able to get my kids in to kind of watch the wrestling, take them behind the scenes, was my dad had always hoped that I would go to the Olympic Games, okay? As much as I was devoted to wrestling, it wasn't going to be a future for me.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't bring myself to continue with it because of all the moves as a family and various other personal reasons. So I remember calling him saying, Dad, you remember you wanted me to go to the Olympic Games? Guess what? I am going, but not as an athlete, right? But I am going, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be looking after this, I'm going to be doing all of this with technical services. I'm going to send a car to pick you up. I want to bring you here. And I'm going to introduce you to some of the people that you may have wrestled back in the early 1970s at your internationals. Because when I originally got the job, it was supposed to be a job for two people. So International Federation, team lead is one, technical service is another. But Daniel, Robert and I got on somebody who goes, do you think you can do both? And I went, I definitely do both, 100%. Because a lot of people that were part of UWW actually knew of my dad. So when I got to meet, you know, the various executives of what was then FILA, they'd be like, yeah, I remember your dad Haggy. And I'm like, wow, this is a side of my dad I didn't experience. I didn't know that he knew these people because all of my travels was domestic. It was never international.
Right, yeah.
So I literally brought my dad down. So broken ears, 60-year-old something guy, you know, bring him behind the scenes, got a special pass for him, I'd done everything properly. Took him behind the scenes and then watched this emotional kind of, oh my God, you know, this is a guy you wrestled against in like 1971. And look at you, both broken old men, but you're both still standing. So it was such a lovely experience to see. And
you didn't say that you're a broken old man, did you?
No, of course not. He probably still would have beaten me. I'm still scared of my dad. So definitely not. But this is why the 2012 games was a memory I'll never forget. I didn't understand the opening, the concept, but the experience was fantastic. The closing ceremony, I sat literally next to David Beckham and his kids. I had Prince Albert of Monaco over here. It was the most surreal kind of experience.
There was a buzz. I remember there was a buzz in London.
I tell
you remember? There was, I don't know, Imran, did you remember 22? Yeah. There was this kind of feeling like, I don't know, optimism. There was this...
it was very upbeat.
Yeah, upbeat, right?
And
100%.
suddenly there was a lot of like, you know what, I'm actually quite proud to be British. I'm actually quite proud to be here. Because in all of the...
But it was in London. So the thing, we didn't have that. That was the thing because...
Never before had we been the centre of stage in any big event, right?
It was more like, I'm proud to be a Londoner than proud to be British.
Yeah, no, that's true.
To be fair.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
And the fact that it was Hackney.
East London. Right? That's another thing, yeah.
So here you are, and remember for me, although I'd moved out, this was my roots. This is where I landed when I came to this country. Yeah. So all of a sudden, here I am, a second generation GB wrestler myself, but a fourth generation wrestler in my family, right? And here I am, and all of a sudden, I'm in this key kind of pivotal position where I get to see behind the curtain. I'm watching the London 2012 games, standing at the side of the wrestling mat. Not from a camera, not from a seat in the stands. I'm actually watching in front of me. So as the wrestler goes, I'm seeing everything. And it was almost like a hazy dream. It was like, did I really manage to speech myself into this job? Because I can't believe they're paying me. And they paid me well. It's not like just a little salary. It was a proper salary. And then I literally lived on site. I stayed in the hotel while I was there. I had a fleet of the Olympic cars. Remember we had the Olympic lanes or the Olympic cars could drive through?
Yeah. The Olympic
Let
lanes.
me tell you, at the end of every day, I would deliberately drive down those roads just because I could. And when I used to do that
It caused a
journey,
massive uproar. Do you remember?
of course it was.
Didn't they suspend them after a while?
No, after the Paralympic Games. Probably me. I did all the time. I do. The worst thing is, but when was the test event? Because where I drive from where I live in Surrey, I'm not even going to say the place, coming via the Blackwall Tunnel, that whole route, the A2, was all Olympic lane. So, and I would deliberately do it in the morning. So you got all of the commuters.
So how did they know? How did they know you were like?
It's Olympic vehicle, BMW.
Oh, the vehicle. Did you get those mash up Adidas trainers, bruv? They could have done better, bruv. Seriously. And that dusty logo as well.
The colour schemes.
Scheme was all over the place, man.
Yeah. But I tell you the funny thing, right? The people that I spoke to, like the guy that's the president of the American Wrestling Association, he's been to every Olympics since, I think, Montreal, which was 1976. And I was like, and he's Stan Diesig, very big guy in the world of wrestling. Also was very big in Lehman Brothers as a trader, so affluent guy, right? So he's there with his wife. I'm looking after him. And then he says, Mansoor, this, I've got to say, probably one of the best Olympics I've ever visited. That's what made me proud to be London. I'm like, wow, this guy's been to like some of the biggest games that have been out there. Because I thought China was impressive with all of their budget and all of the humans that they had involved in the whole opening and the closing. But I loved the opening ceremony. I loved the closing ceremony. I loved the way that we did it. I didn't agree with the colour choices or the trainers, but the way that it was done, it was so typically London. It's how we would have done it if we were a bunch of friends and say, let's put a competition and see what happens. Yeah. Watching them when they were like when that area that was wasteland, I don't even know the history behind it, used to be a glue factory 100 years ago. That ground was toxic. They literally washed the soil and put it back before they built on that land. I didn't even know you could wash soil. I didn't know there was a machine that washed soil. And it
was toxic, man. We used to play football there, bro.
Toxic. So toxic from the glue back.
That explains why I'm rubbish at maths, bro.
That's the reason. That's the reason.
That's the reason, bro. That's all.
The ceremonies were just, bro. It's like
you were there, innit?
Yeah, they had like.
Firstly.
What the invite? First of all, it was my youth worker.
1 second. You know the worst thing about it was, I actually trained volunteers for the London 2012 Olympics.
Wow, the games makers.
Yeah, the games makers. Not all of them, but there was like so there was some money from Coca-Cola that they gave us money to put on some training for volunteers and actually do the recruitment for it as well. So I was part of a team that done all that at the time.
And they did let you in.
No invite, bro.
Wow.
I didn't even get those dusty trainers, bro. They just gave us they didn't give us nothing.
But even if they did give you tickets to anything, it was to watch a Wigan match.
Oh yeah, I did actually get Barclays. They gave me a box to watch Wigan against Arsenal.
Wow.
No, don't say wow, bro. It was mid-season.
Dan Gable.
Well, even Arsenal fans didn't turn up, bro.
Wow, that's how bad that was.
But anyway,
It was an amazing.
It was a magical time, bro.
I watched the opening ceremony 3 times.
Yeah.
The rehearsals before we went to the actual live one. I remember the closing one, seeing that a few times before they ran with it as the final one. It was just the
farmers were coming out, bro. And
all of it. Do you know,
you know that thing that people are sorry to cut you, Mansoor. People are using that as like they were planning the pandemic. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was children of that.
This is a whole conspiracy theory about
really?
There's this like whole Freemason thing.
Nah, that's too much, bro.
That's definitely.
I remember watching it at home. Actually, watching it. It was Ramadan as well. Was it Ramadan?
I can't remember, man.
Yeah, it was.
Next time I come, I'll bring you I've got the widescreen shot of the ground as they were building it. I watched it every day.
No way.
Every day.
Do you remember they had? I'm such a nerd as well, bro. They had a webcam. They had a webcam of it being built.
Yeah.
And I remember like checking in a few times.
I was based in the UBS building on the island. I think we were the 30th floor. So from there we could see right out over the land. So every
UBS
day,
in Canary Wharf.
Yeah, UBS building. And from there, that literally that building was filled with all the Olympic stuff. So we were watching every day as
Sick.
different things were being built, and
How
then
much did
how
that cost though?
Wow,
man.
it was a
How
lot
much
of
they
money,
spent on the
man.
Olympics, bro?
They overspent. I think they overspent by
but
loads.
I think it was the best investment because it showed London to visitors at its very best. You know, the thing is, what's really shocking is I'll bring it for you next time I come here. I'll bring you the photo of that wasteland we were just talking about in April.
Yep.
Right? Bearing in mind the games was going to be in June, July. So you see that picture in April, we're looking thinking,
how's it going to be
we ain't
finished?
going to be ready.
Yeah.
We ain't going to be ready. I still have my hard hat, I still have my boots, everything. I'm going thinking, we ain't going to be ready. And then some miracle, everything kind of happened, and all of a sudden the games was up. Watching it take place, for me, it was great because I watched Iran, the Iranian national team, the Greco team. It's bizarre because I guess I want to say, to be politically, I'm a British Iranian, right? So I'm born in Iran. My roots are Iran. This is my adoptive homeland. But I couldn't help but get nationalistic when I'm watching my own country win 4 out of 5 gold medals, you know, and I'm cheering and I'm celebrating. And, you know, even the one athlete that we did have that took part.
Are you talking about
GB.
Iranian?
No, the Iranian team I watched 4 out of 5 gold medals in the Greco. It was so amazing to watch because they were such an amazing team then. I'm not a fan of their current team by any way, shape of the imagination. Then the wrestlers were what I call true sportsmen. Their manners, their honor with which they fought and which they lost was amazing. I felt so proud to be connected with them. The teams I watched that followed just...
Do they get paid, bro?
No. Do you think Olympics is an amateur? It's an amateur sport, right?
It is an amateur, but you do get countries that reward you. The US paid $50,000 to anyone that won a gold medal. I believe Russia paid $30,000 for every gold medal. So although these are not official kind of this is your reward, because this is the thing, they've politicized the whole Olympics because the medal counts become so important. And if you look at it on another level, if I was to offer a critique, a lot of people competing for countries aren't from that country. Whereas back in the day, you know, the Turkish team was Turkish, you know, the Iranian team was Iranian, you know, the Egyptian team was Egyptian, and so on and so on. Now, when you see like the Australian team come up, you know, and it's Ali Mortaza Hassan, yeah, you really sound Australian, mate. It sounds to me like you're from my village. You're an Iranian, basically.
You mean like this in technology industry, acqui-hire.
Yes.
It's that.
Yeah.
Because you can be Iranian and be born in Australia. That's not what you're saying. You're saying you give citizenship.
Of course you do.
For you to compete.
I consider myself so fortunate to be so passionate about this particular sport, to be given that role while it was a once in a lifetime, is how I looked at it. Made some amazing friends, people I'm still in touch with to this day, even all these years later, you know, where every now and then that, you know, they'll come on and they'll message and there'll be a photo. Oh God, do you remember that day? That was when we were at the control center and this was happening and that was happening. And, you know, the common ground with people from so many places, cultures outside of my own. So, you know, where I'm very used to kind of Middle Eastern type culture, to suddenly meet Americans and Australians and people from New Zealand, you're like, wow, you guys are quite similar too. You know, it's like there's a very common bond. We shared the offices with British Taekwondo, British Judo, got to know those guys really well. You know, with the AAA Park, I could go anywhere. It was brilliant. So I could go and watch Judo in the morning, I could go and watch Taekwondo in the afternoon, I could wander out if I wanted to, whatever was going on at the Excel. It was just unreal. Going upstairs, you know, when the president of Azerbaijan turned up, you know, with all his entourage. And I remember one day meeting 2 of the Secret Service, just people I saw wandering in a corridor, just thought, who are you? What are you doing here? You know, where your pass is, just outside of my remit of responsibility. But hey, if I'm working here, it's important to me that my job's done right. And then, you know, they take me into the office in the back and then they explain to me that they have these pins, but they've got different colours. And introduced me to, okay, if you see that colour, it means he's armed. If you see that one, it means he's diplomatic service. If you see that one, he's doing that. When the Israeli, when one of the teams come, I don't care what I say here.
Yeah, what you want
they had all of their own kind of security, so we had to be mindful of them. Then I started to say, oh wow, so you're the armed one, you're armed, and you're not, and you're that one, and you're that one. But you know what? Not a single event took place that was negative for the duration of those games. In the Excel Centre where I was, not so much as a lost child, nothing. The army that were there checking people every day, coming in and going out, even us that worked there every day, I knew these guys on a first name basis.
Why was there army there?
Because they were searching everybody coming and going. Just the sheer volume of people that you needed. So even as us as staff, imagine, so I'm there for a year and a half. And as I come through, every day I've got to go through a check. Every day I've got to be searched. So they were relentless in what they did. And these are guys that I'm now on like first name basis with. Oh, you're right, Joey, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, we just get it over with and then I'd go on. But the fact is, I love the fact that that's what they were doing. So we never took it personally, never look at, oh, come on, man, just let me get past. There was none of that hackney speak. It was just, you need to do your job. And then when you got to the end of the Olympics and you think, wow, without a single event taking place that was negative, harmful, anybody got hurt, none of it. And you realise these were the people that made that happen. These are the people that kind of, they worked together in this common kind of theme to let's have one of the greatest sporting events ever, in our town, in our place. Yeah. So people will go away and they're going to remember this event. And to me, like I said, a lot of the feedback that I got was, it's probably one of the best Olympics I've ever been to. And like I said, I've not been to many to compare it to, but I certainly felt like everything I'd ever seen on footage, so on video, not really in person, I thought 2012 was the best Olympics ever. I think it rained all over, what happened in Beijing. I think it buried pretty much what happened in Rio. It was that level that I don't know if my lifetime I'll ever experience it again. And to do it in my sport was just,
The icing on the cake.
It was. I mean, I did the schools routine, like with you. I remember going into a school in Bow, and this was, I think these were year one, so very young children, right? And I'm saying, okay, wrestling, it's a very old sport. It's 6,000 years old. It's like this and it's like this. Get this whole talk to them, okay? Came back the next day because I was now doing the next class, and I had one of the parents come up and go, "You're the wrestling coach?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm wrestling coach." She went, "Yeah, my son came home yesterday, says, Mum, our wrestling coach, he's 6,000 years old." And she goes, "I just had to come and see for myself what a 6,000-year-old guy looks like." But it just shows you the information they retain. It was amazing. And, introducing them to the notion of wrestling on a very low kind of easy, relaxed kind of level, and educating them about what the Olympics is about, what it represents, that was really rewarding because, this was the other side of East London that I'd forgotten existed. I'd forgotten because it'd been a long time since I'd been part of it. And I know I don't have my accent and I know I don't speak that way, but, I don't want people to think, I totally get where you're at. I understand. I was raised on these streets. I was also here when we were being shot up and stabbed. I remember all of that. I was there as a child when all this was going on. So now I'm back and look what new memories we have now. So all this gentrification, they will never know what that was. They will never know those fears and knowing that, when you heard a shot, you just dropped to the ground. You didn't need to look where it was coming from. You just knew instantly just to drop. So this was a new memory. So
wicked, bro. Thank you very much for coming. Honestly, bro, every time I do a podcast, I want to do another one. Does that make sense? And this is one of those ones.
Okay.
And I think we definitely get you back. Even maybe this season or next season. We're running for 16 episodes or 17 episodes this season. So this is halfway, right?
8. Yeah. It's 8.
Maths is getting better, bro.
It's 8 halfway, yeah?
the mist is clearing.
But one second. Yeah. 8 plus 8 is 16, bro.
Correct.
Yeah, bro.
So I said the mist is clearing.
Yeah, bro. I'm getting rinsed in the comments, bro. You know that? People actually believe I'm that rubbish at maths.
Last episode he said 20.
Can we? Nah, shut up, bro. Hey, listen. Let's clear this up right now, yeah? Like, I know I'm not great at maths, yeah?
Okay.
No,
but I'm not
that atrocious.
I'm not. It sounds like I've got like a learning difficulty, which is, I mean,
as living kettle all in general.
Yeah, that's different stuff. But I haven't been diagnosed with anything.
Outside of this room, your maths is okay.
It's okay. See how we said it's okay? Your maths is. It's okay. No, look, I run my own business, bruv. I do the accounting. Well, I got an accountant. I just
pay someone else to count for you.
Yeah.
That's tax free,
And Amir at Legion, he does all the mathematics side of things. But yeah, I'm all right at maths. It's just I don't know. Something happens when we get into this room.
He's kind of focused.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Just because
I want to understand something though before you leave. Yeah. Why does your son look Filipino, bro? That's what I want to know.
Which one?
You with it?
This one.
How the hell did you get Filipino son, bro?
I'm gonna say because his mum is Mauritian.
So that's what when you
Very
it's
exotic
like that joke,
looking.
innit? What did you get when you cross an Iranian and a Mauritian?
Yeah, you get Filipino.
Bro, I knew you were gonna pull up one.
I had to just put it in there,
No,
man.
it's good.